What happens when the career you've built suddenly stops feeling like yours? Maybe you've been made redundant, maybe the role you've worked toward for years has quietly been automated away. Or maybe you've just woken up one day and thought, what am I actually doing this for? That feeling of being stuck, uncertain, untethered from your own professional identity is actually more common than ever right now. And it deserves more than just a rejig. I'm Claudia Gasson, and this is What Do You Do? Today, I'm joined by Tim Mitchell, one of our career coaches who works with professionals in the media sector, helping them find their way back to work that actually means something. Tim doesn't just specialise in media, he also works with other clients too. But he specialises in the exact moment of crossroads when you know something has to change, but you have no idea what comes next. In this conversation, we talk about how to reconnect with your values, how to reclaim a sense of control when the ground has shifted beneath you, and what it really takes to find work that fits who you are now, not who you were 5 years ago. Let's get into it. Tim, it is a pleasure to welcome you onto the What Do You Do podcast.
Hi, Claudia. Pleasure.
Awesome. So, Tim, first things first, it would be awesome if we could dive into what you do for a living. So, for anyone who doesn't know what a career coach is, please tell us what it is you do for a living and how you've got to where you are today.
Yeah, no problem. So I am a career coach. I work predominantly with professionals in the media and especially those who are feeling stuck or uncertain about their careers. And my work is predominantly focused around helping them regain some control so they can move forward in a more personally meaningful way and sort of connect with work that is working for them at that point where they are now. Because very often as a senior leader or as a senior within a profession, and say you've had, 10 to 15 years experience, you'll have come into work with a particular mindset, with a particular set of objectives, which over time change, but your role or your career doesn't change. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are getting to that kind of crossroads where they think, okay, something's not quite working, or there's an uncertainty, or they may have gone through forced or even voluntary, some redundancy, whatever that is, especially in these sort of times. And so my work helps them regain that sense of control and put them more towards a sense of meaningful work again.
Brilliant. And tell us your story. How did you get to becoming a career coach?
A lot of people, I fell into my career. I went to university. I studied English literature, realized there's very little I could do with English literature when I came out of university. I met my first boss ridiculously in a petrol station. She just happened to be running a local advertising agency where I'm from in Northampton. And she offered me a job. And I started working in advertising. And made the move to London after a couple of years working locally, and my career sort of, kind of worked in that way. I was working in client service within various ad agencies in London for about 12 years. And then I went and saw a recruiter because I reached that point going, I don't really know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I enjoy aspects of it, but that's about it. And they suggested I went into recruitment and started recruiting for advertising agencies.
Uh-huh.
And the element of the work that I really enjoyed was working with people through, their problems and their challenges. And so I did that for a number of years in a contingency, in a classic kind of recruitment agency sort of focus. And I trained along the side to become a coach, and I started running the two in parallel. A lot of the coaching work would work, as you'll know, Claudia, would work alongside the recruitment work that I was doing. Mm. And slowly but surely over time, I've kind of moved much more towards the coaching than I have the recruitment, but I still do a little bit of recruitment on the side, but my work is very much more focused around coaching.
Brilliant.
So that's my story, really. It wasn't until, I suppose 10, 15 years into my career that I suddenly worked out what I really enjoyed doing and what I felt my work was all about. It took me that long. So I've got a bit of personal kind of investment in that.
Well, I think you bring a really nice edge because you also bring market insights rather than just generic coaching advice. And I think coming from a recruitment background just enables you to be that much more practical in terms of advising people. And I'm sure that I just think it's a very complementary blend of skills.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I agree.
Amazing. So, Tim, you are obviously one of our fabulous What Do You Do coaches, and you obviously have people going through some of the hardest professional moments coming to you. And so, I guess my first question to you is more around what does change actually look like, and what triggers someone to really make that decision to come and work with a career coach, have you found?
Great question. I think there are two things. First is that people tend to look for career coaching when they themselves are at a loss. They, you know, they're either going through what we call a forced transition. Their company is being acquired. Their role is being made redundant. They're in a part and that point in their lives where they are uncertain about what it is they need to do in order to sort of regain a little bit of their momentum, their mojo, their kind of passion, their purpose, that kind of scenario. But it's in the main, people kind of reach out for a career coach when they're just feeling a little bit lost, actually, a little bit lost in terms of what they do. They maybe have come to the realization that the reason they came to their career or their work, their reasons for doing it then are different from their reasons now, or they've reached a point where, I don't know, they may be a mum returning to work after a period of time away, or there's all manner of reasons, but effectively it's a point of change in their lives. And it's either a realization that they are no longer enjoying what they're doing, or their role is being physically taken away from them in some way, shape, or form.
hmm I can totally resonate with that. I think when I was running my agency and reached a point where I didn't know what I wanted to do
Mm.
next, I worked with a career coach and found it really, I guess, an eye opening way to get a different perspective on, and also the space to talk with someone who's not your friend or family to give you that, I guess, directional conversation to help uncover it for yourself and just probe a little bit deeper into
Yeah.
who you are. Okay, brilliant. So, I mean, I hear quite often from people I speak to, I thought I'd be fine with this redundancy, but actually I'm really not. And, we're seeing it all over the headlines at the moment. Oracle made 30,000 redundancies. Meta made 4,000 a couple of weeks ago. But what do you think it is that catches even more resilient people off guard when they are faced with redundancy?
I think it's the fact that when you're in a corporate environment, or you're in a job, you get a monthly salary, you get you're in a situation where you stop thinking about what you're doing for yourself. It's all about others. It's all about the work. It's all about the company. It's that sort of stuff. And I think a career. If you think about the time you spend working, irrespective of whether you're remote, hybrid, or in the office, you're there you're there. That is sort of 70% of your time. And as a result, your identity naturally becomes fused to what it is that you do, your career, what you do for work. It's invariably the question that you answer when somebody says, it's the first thing you ask when you're at a party or when you're meeting somebody new. It's, what do you do for a living? And so everything about your identity is fused with that kind of time that you spend between the hours of, I don't know, 9 and 6 or whatever it is.
Mm.
Um, and I think when that's forcibly taken away from you, or there is a sort of an attack on that, or a part where somebody's coming in and saying, actually, we don't think we need you anymore, or we think we want you to do something else. That sense of agency that you thought you may have is actually it's sort of a fantasy. It's not really there anymore. Somebody else is responsible for what it is for your livelihood, and that's really dangerous for your own sense of self, your own sense of identity, your own sense of security.
Totally. And I know that you're doing some research into career transitions. You're just about to embark on it. And even from drawing on my research from when I was completing my master's in organizational psychology to understand motivation and engagement at work, I'm going to pull out a good old theory here, which is a self-determination theory,
Yeah.
which is all around understanding, why you're disengaged from a role or what motivates you. And I think when people are faced with redundancy, a few things are pulled away from them, as you say. So, like the relatedness piece. So, in order to be motivated at work, you need to have relatedness, which essentially means like friendships at work, and competency. When you're faced with redundancy, you feel like you're not competent because it's personal and it's because you haven't been necessarily,
Hmm.
working effectively. However, it's really important for people to know that when faced with redundancy, it's often just that you are unfortunately a line on a sheet and you are a cost base, and it's
Hmm.
got nothing to do with who you are personally. And I know that sounds really detached, but it's sometimes just the truth, especially in much wider, larger organizations. It
Yeah.
just takes the humanity out of it, I think.
I think that's really important, not to just to interrupt, but I mean, I think when I am talking to people who are going through redundancy, they always talk about the fact I am being made redundant. It is personally affecting you. But at the same time, I think what I try and do is to what I think you're saying there, put some distance between the reality of that. And actually say it's not you, it's not a personal decision. It's a decision that's being made about your role. So your role is being made redundant.
Exactly.
You know, and the job now is to understand what, the aspects of your role that you enjoy, start thinking about the skills, that kind of sense of, um, what are the threads that run through the essence of your role that have been consistent throughout, because they will be there throughout your career, throughout the jobs that you've had, the roles you've had. What are those consistent threads? And so you work back to actually pivot forward, if that makes sense.
Totally. Um, so, how do you work with individuals, obviously, apart from utilizing our career assessment, in order to
Absolutely, using that.
in order
Yeah.
to identify their existing skills and try to, build
Yeah.
clarity and confidence and direction as to where they can go next?
So I kind of have I mean, my process is pretty straightforward in some respects. It's a sort of a 5 or 6 stage process, and it always begins with where they've come from. Where has somebody come from? What's got them to where they are now? What have been the intentional decisions that they've taken? Have they actually made intentional decisions? So there's a real sense of going back to understanding their career history. What's been the motivator for them taking the roles that they have? And very often that might start to uncover kind of, ideas or themes or decisions that they hadn't really thought about, because once you're in a role, you're busy in the role, right? You're busy doing the work. And it's interesting, actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday who had moved from one organization to another organization simply because a role had been put up and they made the move. There wasn't really any intentional thought as to why they were making a move or what that role was doing them that was different than the role they had before.
Hmm.
You kind of get onto a sort of I don't want to say a hamster wheel, but you get into a routine
Is it
with
chasing
work.
that next salary? Was that one the motivator?
It may well have been, but I think in this case, probably not. It was just that they'd been somewhere for the so-called 2.5, 3 years. Something happened, and they went, "Oh well, I'll go and do that instead because it's similar to what I'm doing already," without a kind of real sense. Well, where does that take me? And it's interesting. Actually, their experience was that their role was actually being made redundant, and they were going through a consultation phase. They came to me saying, "Was this is the first time in my life where I've actually sort of thought about why I do what I do, and I've got some time to really think about what I do next." But that in itself is quite scary when you haven't had that time before. Your automatic kind of focus is to sort of think, okay, I need to get a job now. I just need to get a job.
And it's all consuming, I find, when you're working in a really high intense role. And when do you have the time to really map out exactly what you're going to do next?
Mm.
Maybe spending a bit like an afternoon at a weekend to sit down and maybe try and figure it out by yourself can actually be quite difficult to do,
Yeah,
especially when you don't know what options there are for you out there. So,
yeah. There's always something better to do as well. Actually,
yeah.
when
So
you
you
think about it.
mentioned that was the first stage. What were the following steps that you
So
go
this, I mean, so very often. So once we've started looking at that, we then work on. We go through values and identity. Who have you been? Why? Who have you been in work? Who do you want to be? What are your values? And in many ways, that's about understanding who you are and then how you engage with an organization or a role and so forth. So where's the match on that? Start working through values, and then we start to sort of just really over a period of time start putting all of that together. We think about it from the more practical aspects of networking, which is a horrible expression, but actually if you think about it, it's really about understanding. It's understanding that, to your point that you made there, the people that you're going to be spending the majority of your time with at work, you are then building a communicate, you want to get out and meet as many people as you can in order to sort of talk about, share experiences, get out there and understand what's going on in the market and so forth.
Totally. I'd say that we also recommend doing mini experiments. So whether that be going to events where in your new career path, or whether that be going and having coffees with people who are already doing it, who are open to spending their time to tell you what it's really like and what the reality is, or even
Yeah.
just like listening to podcasts around specific careers and things like that. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think
great.
it's interesting, and as well, and there is a temptation that you go straight to your own network. But I mean, you'll know there's the school of thought, which, I mean, in this space, you're kind of, we're big fans of Arminia Ibarra and that and the work that she does. But that's all about extending your network and understanding where you need to go. Once you've understood what it is that you do, what you connect with, and all the rest of it, you then start to think about, well, where can I start to explore that? Where can I explore the kind of hats and the people that are going to help me get to where they're going to help me get to that perspective? So we do a lot of work around that space.
So I have had a couple of conversations with individuals who maybe are concerned about working with a career coach because they don't want to spend the money on it,
Mm-hmm.
and are just concerned that they're not really going to come out with anything at the end of it. So how would you, I guess, counter that objection?
I mean, I think it's a really good. I mean, there is automatically a sense that when you're in need of a career coach, is because you've lost a period of income, or some income, you've lost that ability. You're a distress purchase in many ways, aren't you? In that respect, so I totally
Mm.
get it. My overriding kind of sense of it is that I get it, I understand that, but at the same time, this is the one time when you need to start to invest in yourself and invest in somebody that is going to be impartial, be a container for you, help you help you make the kind of decisions that are right for you, that's going to challenge your thinking, that's going to sort of, I suppose, take you to places, help you, take you to places that are going to help you get a sense of where you want to go. And you're not going to get that by not getting out and about and not sort of investing that time in yourself, really, effectively. You've got to want to make that change, though. That's what I would say. And if you're going to feel like you can't afford to do it, on whether I would question whether you feel motivated enough at that time to do something to change.
I totally agree. And I think there's also another thing around making sure that you find the right fit for your coach. So,
Yeah.
do they have how many people have they worked with? Have they worked with your seniority levels before? Have they experienced life to be able to draw from their own personal experiences? And, if someone's worked in media, they'd definitely be a great fit for you because obviously you've worked in the sector
Yeah.
and advertising, and also have that recruitment expertise as well. So you have market data to align with that. So from that perspective, I think it's really important to be discerning about who you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And kiss a lot of, and kiss some frogs. I think at the end of the day, it's about, don't just, there are lots of coaches out there. So I think you can afford to sort of spend some time,
Mhm.
doing a bit of homework and finding out who is a fit for you, who you have chemistry with. So I think that's important.
Exactly. Okay. So going just back to the wave of redundancies that we're seeing on headlines across the world, and also in the UK. So I feel like this feels a little bit different, and a lot of people are talking about how the job market is really difficult at the moment out there, especially across things like advertising, like and maybe media too. Can you just give us some insights into what you're seeing across the market at the moment?
Well, I think there's an awful, well, and certainly in the creative space, there's always been a lot of a lot of consolidation. Invariably you have holding companies that are acquiring, smaller businesses, and as a result of that, you see the consolidation of role, you see, duplication, that sort of stuff. That's always been something that happens in advertising. Without sort of jumping on the AI bandwagon, I mean, that's a massive thing at the moment where, everyone's scared about that. Nobody really knows what the outcome of AI or what that what will transpire as a result of that. There's no doubt it will have an impact on roles, but and I just think we're in a period of time where it's not just work uncertainty, it's political uncertainty. It's the fact that, globally there's an awful lot of, there is so much kind of uncertainty that is impacting everything from supply chains all the way through to energy, through to whatever. So, it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time.
Say, for example, you had a specific role within broadcast and media that is being automated by AI or is being accelerated in terms of the day-to-day tooling of AI. How would you handle someone, I guess, from a psychological mindset who is experiencing that? Say, for example, they're a graphic designer and everyone's using, is it Banana? I can't remember the latest thing on Google, the latest AI tool, but and obviously ChatGPT can create beautiful pictures and imagery, and there's videos and what have you now. So what would you say to someone from that creative industry now who feels like their skills are getting absorbed by AI and the cost cutting behind it?
I mean, two things really. I mean, AI is not going to take the place of humanity in design. I think you have to sort of have a perspective and a point of view on that. I mean, it's a learned language model at the end of the day. So it can interpret, but it can't deliver intent. It can't deliver that element. So the work is twofold. I think the work we'd spend is sort of understanding why you do what you do and what you do that's different. It's not about replication, but it's sort of really connecting with, what you do, who you are as a creative, if we're talking about design. And the other thing I would say is talk about, change is a constant thing. I mean, I think change is something that we've all had to experience. So actually upskilling, training, continuous personal development, all of that sort of stuff is hugely important. And the ability to, just getting out there and understanding, okay, I can fight this, or I can acknowledge the fact that this is happening. So how do I get on top of it? You get on top of it by learning as much as you can about it and becoming skilled in it in many ways. So I would be encouraging people to investigate their own kind of, training needs on that basis and investing in it. You can do a lot through the LinkedIn learnings and the online courses that are around there. So,
yeah,
and almost doing it before it becomes an issue,
Totally. I think we need to now create a culture of continuous upskilling. And for anyone watching or listening, our career pathways help identify where your skills could get moved into. And also gives you the upskilling routes and the providers to be able to help make that pivot and upskill. So just a little tip there. Great. So I guess we're talking a little bit more, we're kind of touching a bit on human adaptability and obviously taking upskilling as one route to become adaptable. Obviously, throughout the years, we've had multiple revolutions, and whereby, like the Industrial Revolution, where huge industries were completely getting changed, and yet humans still managed to navigate this and adapt. So this might be a bit of a, I guess, more of an intellectual question, but what does the research say about human adaptability, and are we actually better at it than we think?
I think what does happen is that you adapt you adapt, it's forced, right? I mean, you have to adapt. I mean, the evolution is there. People learned how to use the weaving machines. They didn't stop. Weaving as an industry didn't stop, when it was the Luddite revolution, but they learned the machines were coming in. There's nothing you could do about that. So the choices were what? You get rid of them, or you just learn how to use them. I'm being, if there are historians amongst this, don't quote me, but you know what I mean? It's that. So you learn about what's going on, and that need to evolve comes from a need to survive, I suppose, really, in this sense. You're adapting within the system.
No, I totally agree with you there. And I think that just goes to show that we do completely adapt as a race. So I don't think people should be as scared as they are about, AI taking people's jobs. There are new jobs coming out. So another question is around community. And I think that, when people are made redundant, they immediately lose their community because their immediate community through work. So where do you think community fits into recovery? Because instinctively, I think people isolate, and that probably seems like the wrong thing to do when, redundancy happens. So, Yeah, where do you think community fits into recovery?
I mean, I think community is incredibly important. Just speaking from my own personal experience, I work alone, and without and that can be an incredibly isolating place. So, the fact that I'm part of what you do is an incredible community that allows me to connect with other like-minded people. I take face-to-face meetings a lot because that's really important in terms of my own networking. Like anybody that's out there looking at careers and looking at opportunity, I run my own business, so I'm out there looking for opportunity, and the way to do that is to get out and about and connect with people. And I think going back to that sort of whole sense of networking, I think the more you can acknowledge where you're at, the more the danger is that when you get made redundant or you lose a role or you're transitioning or whatever it is, and you sort of go into yourself, especially if it's been a difficult set of circumstances that have resulted in that loss, that you take it, you tend to sort of your natural thing is to go into self-preservation, to go into a bit of a cocoon, to actually pretend everything's okay. LinkedIn is a great example of how you could actually start to use that from the perspective of building community. This is what's happened to me. This is where I'm at. Who else is out there? Does anybody else relate to this? You start to connect with people online. You start to take that offline. You build a network that way. I think
Exactly.
it's hugely important. And these sorts of, and the community that we've got going on at What Do You Do is another prime example. You start to connect with like-minded people.
Definitely. And they're going through a similar transition to you, probably.
Yeah,
So you can have open conversations about how you're finding things, and we can even connect you with individuals who are going through a very similar thing in a similar industry, or looking to pivot into similar industries, to really help make those connections as well. Wonderful. So someone is listening to this in the thick of it right now. They're going through a redundancy or a consultation process. What's the one thing that you'd want them to do differently this week, or have it as a takeaway from this conversation?
I think there are two things I would do. I think the first thing would be, whilst you're in the middle of a consultation, I would be working with the people, the HR team who are running it, whoever is running that consultation, and asking and being really clear with them about what opportunities they know about, or what they're going to be able to, or what the introductions they could make for you outside of the immediate process, because they all have networks. There's a little bit of me that wants to sort of say, get them to work a little bit for you here. It's one-sided. So, everybody you meet, I would always say to them, ask for 2, 3 names that they can connect with and reference you to. This is the first thing. That's a practical tip. The other thing is, just don't be, if you can, stop, take stock a little, and don't be tempted to rush headlong into finding a new thing straight away. Don't be applying to everything until you've just taken stock a little bit, just taken some time to process what's going on for you. Because without getting too woo-woo about it, if you've been in a long-term role, or even if it's a short time in a role, there will be a sense of loss, because it's not you making that decision
Mhm.
to move away from that business. And I would say you need to take some time. You should think about taking some time to take some stock and just process it, let it go a little bit, get angry with it, or move through that point, because you're not going to be in the most positive frame of mind to start the next phase of your time, which is going out and thinking about what you do next, or engaging with people.
Totally.
That's what I would say. If you can, it's a luxury, but yeah, if you can.
Yeah. And even from my perspective, I think, I hate to do a little plug here, but even just joining the community as a first step, and just
Hmm.
exploring what's out there. But also, just as I totally agree with you, do not make any decisions. Just take some time to process what you're experiencing. And if you do feel like you need that extra support and care and that space to speak with someone, obviously we are here for you, no matter what you're experiencing. If it's a redundancy or transition that you're experiencing, or feeling like you don't know what you want to do next, we
Yeah,
would be delighted to support you. So I think that's a great bit of advice there, Tim. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been awesome to just chat through how to manage redundancy processes from your perspective, and to share your background and story more. So thanks so much for
pleasure.
coming on the podcast.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.